My wife, Natalie Earle. She's eating sauerkraut, practicing what she preaches as I introduce her. Natalie Earle is a functional nutritional therapy practitioner with a BS in physics. In 2013, she was diagnosed with prediabetes, skin issues, and severe PMS symptoms. In 2015, Natalie engaged in the GAPS diet, and in the subsequent years, she was able to reverse her prediabetes and put her other symptoms into remission. Over the last 8 years, Natalie has supported hundreds of clients with autoimmune disorders, cancer, PCOS, endometriosis, and nervous system disorders. I have my health to thank for the work of Natalie and her nutritional recommendations for me personally. So I hope you'll enjoy this conversation with her.
One more thing. Do you want to boost your energy, mental clarity, and focus in just 30 days? Click the link below so that you can download my free guide with 6 simple changes that are going to help you feel amazing and confident. And if you're ready to dive deeper and uncover the root causes of your symptoms, book your free 45-minute exploration call today at nutritionwithconfidence.com. All right?
Welcome to the second Ask Me Anything with Natalie. If you have any questions in the future, feel free to drop them in the comments below or comment on any other of our videos with a question, and we'll include these for future Ask Me Anythings. So the first series of questions were anonymous, all about sinuses. And so the first question is, why do so many people keep getting chronic sinus infections, even after using antibiotics or allergy meds?
So the reason for this is that the majority of sinus infections are actually rooted as a fungal infection. And so most commonly the treatment options for sinus infections is a antibiotic, and that's going to be killing bacteria. So if it's a bacterial infection, it will absolutely support that. However, most are fungal related. And at the same time, when we take an antibiotic, this has a huge impact on maybe it does succeed in killing a bacterial infection from the get-go. When we start getting recurrent infections, this is because after taking one antibiotic, this is going to severely impact the terrain of good beneficial bacteria in the entire microbiome, which starts from the sinus cavity, the mouth, and all the way through the whole entire GI system. So if we negatively impact that beneficial bacteria, there's not enough of that to keep at bay some of the other bacteria from coming back and recurring as an infection.
No. Wow. Well, the next question is, what are the most common root causes you see behind persistent sinus problems?
As I said, most of these chronic sinus infections are fungal related. And so the roots of many of these is actually an environmental exposure to mold and mycotoxins in the body can then colonize in the sinuses. So mold is something that everybody is probably very much exposed to on a day-to-day basis. Not all mold will release mycotoxins that are damaging to our bodies. However, in the majority of our modern homes, the types of mold that are becoming more prevalent are very dangerous mold that will release mycotoxins that are very dangerous to our immune systems and our bodies. So there's 75% of people who are capable of their immune system targeting those mycotoxins and eliminating them, whereas 25% of people will have a really difficult time doing that. And it's dependent on, exposure, your detox pathways and the overall stress burden on your body if you're capable of getting rid of those mycotoxins. So if not, what's going to happen is those mycotoxins are going to stay prevalent in the body and colonize in your sinuses. So that's one of the root causes, is fungal infections in the body, in the sinuses caused by mycotoxins. Another root cause that I often find is some sort of dental imbalance. So root canals often can create huge impacts to the oral microbiome and the ear, nose, and throat microbiome. So those issues need to be taken care of or addressed as well. Not to mention, even just bacterial dysbiosis in general from the entire GI system is going to lead to some imbalances in the sinuses as well. So those are the roots that I often see.
Yeah, and if you're interested in doing a bit more of a deep dive on the oral microbiome, Dr. Blodgett, who we hope to have on at some point on the podcast, has a lot of great information online around infected root canals and how that contributes to all sorts of symptoms. Also, Dr. Neil Nathan, who we recently had on the podcast, highly recommend checking out that episode, and I'll link it in the show notes below. We just did a deep dive on mold and tick-borne illnesses, so highly recommend checking that out. So the next question is, what's one thing someone can do today to start getting natural relief from sinus symptoms?
So one of the best things to do for your immune system in general is to go low carbohydrate. When we are eating a lot of carbohydrates in our diet, this is going to spike our blood sugar and impact our cortisol levels, which is going to really impact and slow healing by 60%. So your immune system is not going to be as fully functioning to really get after any chronic infections that way. For sinus infections, my go-to is usually N-acetylcysteine, or NAC. I love this. What this does is it breaks down biofilms. It can disturb some of the biofilms in the sinuses. It's a natural decongestant. So if you have it also, any lung congestion as well, it's really fabulous for that as well. And it also improves detox pathways. So it's going to help with whatever's at the root usually as well with the sinus infections. So those are the two biggest things that I would say. You can also use neti pots with a neti pot treatment, which is going to be kind of like a sinus nasal flush. If you have chronic or an active infection, it's actually going to promote some mucus. Mucus is how the body gets rid of infections and bacteria and things like that. So we want to have a balance of decongestants, but also mucus to get those bacteria out of the body. So a neti pot is going to rinse and flush out the sinuses. I like to add vitamin C, buffered C, into the neti pot with iodine and salt as well.
Yeah, nice.
Good.
So the next question is from Carissa Realtor. It was a YouTube comment. She asked, please do a video about autophagy. Don't you think fasting can heal the gut as well? It heals everything else. So maybe if you could start with defining autophagy and then go from there.
Yeah. So autophagy is the body's way of cleaning out the garbage. It's the simplest way to understand it. It's our body's mechanism of kind of metabolizing or breaking down the cells that aren't functioning anymore and getting rid of them. So this is how our body prevents cancer cells from growing. This is how our body can be really efficient with regeneration, is because when we fast, this triggers autophagy in our body to then make sure it's surveillance of what's not working as well. Let's break that down so we can now rebuild some new cells. And this is constantly happening, but it's not happening if you're not getting into like a ketogenic state, which is what happens when you fast. So absolutely, fasting can regenerate our gut lining, because this is what autophagy does. It helps us rebuild. The other benefits to fasting for the gut is that actually we can improve or increase our microbial diversity. So it's kind of like a reset to some of the pathogens that might be present in the gut, and we can feel better when we do some intermittent fasting or longer fasts. The problem is that we can't do that all the time. And the amount of healing that needs to take place needs to be balanced with the fasting. If we're fasting all the time, we're going to be more at risk for nutrient deficiencies. And so while we are trying to get the benefits of fasting, which is autophagy, we can actually replicate that through more of a intermittent fasting approach in conjunction with a ketogenic diet. So this is one way that we can actually accelerate and get benefits from that autophagy state. And it can improve the gut and regenerate other cells in your body.
Yeah. And I know I've heard to start off slow if you do try fasting for the first time. Is that good advice? Start with the intermittent fasting maybe before you do a 7-day fast?
Yes, absolutely. The timeline to get into autophagy is different for different types of fasting as well. So autophagy usually gets triggered after a 24-hour fast. So you're likely getting some autophagy before that, but it's not full body and in different organs. It might be harder to get access to that or to start to signal that. So also, if you're doing a clean fast, which is like just straight water fasting, no coffee or any other foods with calories or even like low calorie, then you'll get into autophagy faster versus if you have some of these inputs. On a step up from that, doing dry fasting, you'll get into autophagy even faster, which dry fasting is just absolutely no liquids and water, but that requires more oversight and training to be able to get into that and start doing that. So definitely want to work your way up to your fasting, building your fasting muscle. So start with intermittent fasting. A 16-8 schedule can be wonderful for that, and then work up to that 24.
16 hours of not eating, 8-hour eating window.
Yes.
Okay. And I've noticed for me when I've done the ketogenic diet versus a higher carbohydrate diet, it's been a lot easier for me to fast.
Yes.
Do you have any concerns with someone going from high carb standard American diet to fasting right away?
Only if someone has a significant case of hypoglycemia would that be more of a risk. Blood pressure, low blood pressure issues as well you could be more at risk. So when you drastically cut, when you start fasting, the blood sugar is going to drop and your blood pressure can drop too because that's closely linked. But the effect of your body should be able to and is definitely capable of boosting, kind of balancing the blood sugar and the blood pressure on its own. However, it's just like anything. If you do this very drastically, that could, it would take a while, a couple days for you'll feel very, very ill during that time. So it's not the best. It's really good to ease your way into it using a low carbohydrate diet first, and then doing the intermittent fasting in conjunction with that. And for me, in my case, personally, I can speak to, I had hypoglycemia and it was very scary to not have food around. And even on a low carbohydrate diet, fasting seemed really challenging. So it wasn't until I actually got into a ketogenic state using different ratios in the low carbohydrate kind of food macros. And then once I was in ketosis, it was so much easier for me to stabilize my blood sugar, and I could easily go without food. So sometimes it's really that next step of getting into ketosis.
Yeah. And I'll just add on that topic of fasting. I love all the health benefits that we get from fasting, but also the first couple times I did a longer fast, a 24-hour fast, I just love not having to cook and do dishes and whatnot. That's awesome. And then also it's just such a spiritual experience. You have all this extra time and you get to choose what to do with that time. Maybe spend it in nature, maybe pray, do whatever spiritual practice that fits for you. 'Cause it's just such a an ancient tradition and numerous religions to not eat for extended periods of time. And I think there's a richness there. So
Yeah, I always say it should feel easeful. At the same time, it can be, it's a challenge, right? So it should feel like an easeful challenge, I think. Some people really have told me, or I've worked with some people who it just is such agony to do the fasting. There's the deeper issue there is sometimes the stories we're telling, but most often there's a physical thing going on where the adrenals need support, or the thyroid needs support. So if that's happening to you, just, support your body in different ways before you can revisit that, but don't give up because it is such a healing state.
Yeah. All right. Well, next question. Another comment, I believe, on YouTube. Lisa Ann 8473 asks, I've been told I have reactive hypoglycemia. I've been following a low carb, low sugar diet for 4 years now. Been very disciplined. My symptoms have improved, but they're not perfect. I still feel rubbish if I exert myself too much. For example, I play tennis. If I play doubles, I'm okay. Singles, don't feel so good. I feel very well otherwise. Take a fair amount of supplements already. Vitamin C, D, multi-mineral, magnesium. I'm 44, slim, fit, and healthy, and I really hoped I could turn this around, but I feel I can't quite heal myself completely. Any suggestions?
I think that you are right, so close. You're right on the cusp of healing yourself. So definitely stay hopeful and know that it is possible. What I think you might benefit from in this case is actually doing 3 to 6 months of ketosis to help reset the mitochondria. That's likely why you're still dealing with the reactive hypoglycemia, and that can go away. It'll heal very quickly with ketosis.
Are you talking about therapeutic ketosis?
Yeah. So testing your blood sugars and your ketone levels with a blood ketone monitor, and you could ease into ketosis but it sounds like you're already low carb. So it would just be a matter of shifting your macros and testing to make sure you're in ketosis. And then there are some key nutrients that you might have missed as well. And so what I like to do with our clients is a micronutrient intracellular test. This is looking at the nutrient deficiencies which are vitamins and minerals that are long-standing deficiencies. There's several that are very important for blood sugar regulation. The first is benfotiamine. And then there's other minerals, which you're probably aware of. It's chromium, but also manganese is a big one. And so I would do testing, but if you can't do testing, the SpectraCell test or a Vibrant micronutrient test, definitely try some other minerals. And the high dose benfotiamine protocol is my go-to for blood sugar issues.
Nice. And just to track back, so you said therapeutic, so 1.5 millimole over deciliter for the blood test. Ketones is what you'd recommend testing every morning. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yep. And do that, you said, about 3 months.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, there you have it. So the next question is, what's your favorite patient recovery story?
Oh, I think that my favorite patient recovery or client recovery story is someone actually whose story reminds me a lot of mine. So that's interesting. But it's actually a common theme of a lot of my clients, and this person specifically had symptoms as a kid, digestive symptoms as a kid, maybe some anxiety starting in high school. But she came to me with insomnia, anxiety, panic attacks, depression. She had menstrual imbalances, PMS symptoms, mood imbalances, particularly in irritability. She had bloating, constipation, and a lot of abdominal pain, brain fog, memory issues, fatigue, achy muscles, joint pain, just a whole host of symptoms, full body. And when I see clients like this, and in my own experience, a lot of this is related to our nervous system. For her, the symptoms from childhood just progressively got worse and really got worse. And after several incidences of big life crises and stress in her young adult life. So she had also come to me, interestingly, having tried the Whole30 diet, paleo, low FODMAP, Candida diet, elemental diet, which is a therapeutic protocol for small intestine bacterial overgrowth. She'd even tried the carnivore diet, and none of them seemed to help fully. She did each of them also for a long enough period of time. That's always what I look at. But she did carnivore for 6 months, and interestingly, with all of these different diets, I think that they might have helped. Well, she told me that they would help with some of the symptoms, but then she'd have a lot of adverse reactions with other parts of the protocol. And interestingly, we put her on a gut microbiome protocol, and within 3 months or so, and actually within a month, she already was feeling better. She was sleeping through the night, and her bloating had been gone, even though even on a carnivore diet, she was having bloating. Her bloating went down. She was already feeling more energy. The stomach symptoms had improved. Her PMS symptoms had improved. And I tell this story and I love it because it highlights the importance of how we cook our food and really the ancestral principles of the gut healing microbiome shifting diets that I like to use that are really supporting not just the digestion, but her mental health, the rebuilding of the nervous system. And a lot of the things we did together were supportive of that, the nervous system. And she, within, 6 months, it was amazing. She was getting married and already like trying, gluten-free cake and things like that she, for her wedding, that with no reactions. And she had histamine issues before and tons of reactivity. And now, within, 6 months, she got married, or 6 to 8 months of working together, she got married, was able to enjoy her wedding and the food and celebrating with everybody. And it's like she was a different person. So I really, the way we approach our protocols, the way we approach anything in life, the way we cook our food, the where we source it, the mindset we have going into trying different protocols makes a huge difference. But I think as well, just having a guide, I think she felt really lost with all the symptoms that would come up in all of the other protocols she had tried. And that made a huge difference to have someone to bounce ideas off of and say, this is normal, this is not normal.
Yeah. And I forget the name of that book you read, but there's literally peer-reviewed literature that shows if we can connect with a practitioner, and this is just such an important piece of information. Mm-hmm. If you have any sort of health provider and you don't feel connected to them, you don't feel like they are on your team understanding you, you're probably not going to be helped by them no matter how effective their treatment is. That attunement and relationship with your practitioner is healing in and of itself.
Yeah.
It's placebo, but it literally helps you heal. So making sure you find someone like you who you really feel is on your side, oriented in a way that makes sense to you, huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. The book was it's actually called How Healing Works, and I forget the author's name, but we'll make sure we post that because it's a fabulous book. And everybody discounts the placebo effect, but all the research on placebo shows us that there's actually power in it. And so we can actually, instead of discounting it, we should use it to our advantage.
Yeah. And I also wanted to double tap on that food freedom piece, how we're big on this. We're not super dogmatic. There's the strict carnivores on one end, the raw vegans, fruitarians on the other end, and we're always somewhere in the middle, because the truth is we are going to need different eating protocols at different parts of our lives. We've gone through 2-year stints where we were super dialed in with no sugar, no starches, no processed food. We've gone through seasons where we experimented. When we traveled to Italy, we had experiments with gluten and sugar, which we hadn't had for a long time. And in my opinion, there's certain foods that really are not foods. A lot of these processed foods, the foods of modern commerce, as Dr. Weston A. Price talked about them, the refined, highly processed oils, the sugar, all the highly processed ingredients that you can't read, they don't have a place in the human diet, in my opinion. But I love your perspective on using these protocols that are more require more restraint, with the ultimate goal of being able to introduce more foods and have some flexibility, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Myhill, when we had her on the podcast, highly recommend listening to that episode as well. She talked about how every once in a while she'll go out with her girlfriends, have a drink, right?
Yeah.
She knows how powerful the paleo ketogenic diets are, and that's what she does 99% of the time. But when she goes out with her friends, she's going to have a few drinks, right? Life's too short. So certain people's bodies are not in a place to do that, and you need to dial it in for a period of time. But I love that your client had the ability to have some gluten-free cake and not have to worry too much about those really significant consequences that a lot of people experience when they do eat those highly processed foods and high sugar foods.
Yeah. And I think just at the end of that, I would say really to be honest with yourself. It's so hard to be in a place where your body is actually telling you, no, I can't go out and do those kinds of things right now. It's really hard mentally, socially. We want to be pushing ourselves to still go out and have that drink. But if your body is telling you no, please listen to it, and be honest with yourself that this is just not where you're at right now. And it's not forever though. And that's okay. I struggled a lot with that, just trying to push myself for so many years. And unfortunately, I think it can prolong the healing journey. And so, keep that in mind as well. Just being 100% honest with yourself.
That's great. And the last question. Plant-based people say a diet high in fat and protein without starch will starve butyrate-producing bacteria and increase gram-negative bacteria, increasing inflammation. Can you please explain how this isn't exactly the case, or is it, if the GAPS healing protocol helps heal the gut?
Yes. So I have just not seen this to be the case. I usually don't run stool tests in my practice because pretty much everybody has dysbiosis and we don't need to run a test for that. We can do so much already from the diet ends of things before we need to test again, maybe in the future. If we're stuck, if we want to see progress, we'll do that. So when I do run a stool test after they've been on a GAPS protocol, which is a microbiome shifting protocol, which tends to be animal-based, high in fat and protein, for specific reasons, that one, their symptoms improve, and two, the stool test shows the type of stool test that I like to run is actually the Biome FX stool test by Microbiome Labs. And why I like this is because they are very transparent that we only know 30 to 50% of the types of bacteria that are in our gut at this time. So there's a lot of room for error in these tests of just because you don't have maybe a key beneficial species that we know of now doesn't mean that your gut doesn't have or is lacking certain other key beneficial species that are functioning well in your gut. So their test also tests for the function. So looking at butyrate production and other byproducts that the gut microbiome will release. And that gives us a picture of how well is your gut functioning regardless of the types of species that are present. And I have seen people with, on a carnivore GAPS, no plant GAPS, or different types of protocols that have very little fiber and plant foods, and they have well-functioning butyric acid production. And there is research that shows that protein fermentation can increase butyric acid. So it's not just carbohydrates. What I think I want to speak to here is this concept that we see in a lot of studies in the microbiome research world currently telling us that we need to eat polysaccharides, prebiotics, all of these different polyphenol type foods that are plant-based to feed our beneficial bacteria. The problem with this is that they feed opportunistic and pathogenic bacteria also. So it's indiscriminate at the beginning stages. If you have imbalanced bacteria and you start going after, trying to feed all the good bacteria, it's likely that the good bacteria are not being fed. What's eating up all of those polysaccharides are just complex, long chain carbohydrates. These are the starches that will actually be feeding opportunistic bacteria. So in order to correct this for a time, we really do need to prioritize the animal-based proteins and fats that will feed the good bacteria as well. And they will make it all the way down to the colon. Whereas if we have small intestine bacterial overgrowth or small intestine fungal overgrowth, when we eat those polysaccharides, those starches, those plant foods, they will be feeding the small intestine bacteria, not the large intestine. And that's where we want the good bacteria, is in the large intestine. And they're not getting it. So even if a petri dish will tell us that, yes, these bacteria love the plant foods, we are not going to get that functionally when we actually eat a lot of those plant foods in an imbalanced state. So let's get the balance first, and then we can try to add those back in.
Super helpful.
Good.
Now that you're a wealth of knowledge, thanks for all the work you do, taking the time to answer these great questions. Thanks for the questions.
Thank you. Send them in.
Keep them coming. And I think I'll just leave you with the message of, we believe that your body can heal. Most diseases, most chronic diseases, we believe the body can heal. It's just a matter of finding out what context your body needs to heal. And, I think that
Absolutely.
experience with your client's experience of trying 5-6 diets and going all in with them and not seeing any improvement speaks to the importance of finding, one, a practitioner who can help you, walk alongside you to identify what you're needing, and then 2, to just keep trying. That's
Don't
what it's
give
been
up.
for us. We continue to this day to learn about new pieces with our own health that we can continue to optimize in areas that we otherwise didn't know. So just keep learning, keep trying. You'll figure out what your body needs, and your body will heal. Your body can heal. It will heal once you give it the right context. So that is a journey. We're on this journey with you. Let us know how we can support you.
Yeah. One last thing that I will tag on there too is, in this age of information overload, trust that you are going to get the information that you need in the time that you need it, without the desperation of having to get it all at once. That's just not how nature works. And even though we have the infinite experience of, the internet, of, infinite information, access to that, we are still part of nature, and there's a cyclical experience of nature, right? Of life and death. And there's times of growth, and there's times of pause and death and rebirth, right? So dosing the information is so important.
We recently did an information fast inspired by Tim Ferriss, and it was so wonderful.
So good.
No news, no YouTube for a week, just reading his book and listening to music. It was awesome.
Yeah,
So
highly recommend
fast
it.
from the news media for a while. It's a nice thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, take care, everybody.
Bye.